Welcome to this episode of Let's Be Civil. Joining me today for this episode of Let's Be Civil is Katherine Holtz. Katherine Holtz has 39 years of senior management and advanced technical expertise in quality management systems, materials engineering, design, construction, and maintenance of capital improvement projects. This includes 25 years at the Texas Department of Transportation and 14 years with engineering, construction, and transportation consulting firms. Welcome everybody again to another edition of Let's Be Civil, the civil engineering podcast. And we have Katherine with us today to, like we do with everybody else, get some insight into her professional world and see what new things we can learn. It's one of the best things about sitting in this seat is I get to talk to all of you, and I haven't come out of any one of these without, wow, I didn't know that. That's really a lot of fun kind of feeling about the conversation. So let's start off with a little bit of background about yourself and your career. And I think you know as well as I do that women in these kind of professions are fewer in number than the men, and maybe if you have some comments along the way there for the women that will be viewing our conversation, that encouraging words for them.
Yeah.
So I'll turn it over to you and let you get started, and we'll take it from there.
All right, great. Hi everyone, I'm Katherine Holtz. In 1981, I graduated from the University of Texas.
Put those things down. Go ahead.
Degree in civil engineering. I only my GPA at the time of graduation was only a C+, 2.49. So I just called that a C+, and went to work directly with the Texas Department of Transportation. Lucky enough to have 5 or 6 different positions with them. So I've worked 25 years with TxDOT, and in between there, I left and went and worked 13 years doing startups for civil engineering firms in the Austin area. And then went back to TxDOT, and then on my retirement, I'm doing a sort of a part-time gig of putting together a online recorded sort of a civil technician, engineering technician class. We're starting with construction inspection and moving on into other construction related technician positions with this online course. So kind of getting into some of your stuff, and that's finding it really interesting. So let's see, you said something about women. It's true. I was one of few women at the Texas Department of Transportation. I'll have to say it worked for me a lot, and it worked against me a lot. Everybody knew who I was. A lot of fellers treated me like their daughter, so I was getting more face time with people than the other guys my age. They were kind of protecting me and taking care of me, so that was good, and giving me good relationships that helped me move up. There were times, though, where I feel like I lost jobs because I didn't have those relationships. They knew those guys. They might have had less experience, less time than me, but they would get the jobs, I think, mainly because of the hiring person knew them. So that's a pretty big deal for folks to know. Relationships are always very important.
Well, I was gonna say that what I'm taking away from your comment is maybe not so much about male, female, but more about your network, your professional network, and just having those relationships and purposefully developing them, because you don't know what might come down.
That's correct.
So you said, if I remember correctly, 5 different positions in your first stint at the DOT. Can you talk a little bit about, where you started and what that progression was?
Yeah, sure. One of the interesting things that I remember from college was that a professor told us that 5 years after we graduate, 5 years after starting a job, we'll be in management and we really won't be doing engineering anymore. And that turned out to be true. I was pretty surprised about it, but I started off in the construction division at TxDOT doing basically contract management, approving change orders, big statewide change orders, writing specifications. I managed the TxDOT letting, where they gave, people bid on work and we would give out the projects.
That's right.
Did that for a couple years and then got asked to go run the district lab. I became a materials engineer for the next 4 years. Had a crew of 11 guys, all older than me.
Mm-hmm.
They especially took me under their wing and taught me how to do testing and everything important that I learned from technicians, and that's very important for engineers to know.
Right.
You'll probably learn most of your job from guys that aren't engineers. Mm-hmm. After that, I went out to an area office where they would do design and then inspect the design. So I was very lucky to get the job where I designed a roadway, and then I had to go out and make sure the contractor build the roadway in accordance with the plans I designed.
Very nice.
I learned what a bad designer I was. If you don't know construction, then you don't know design as well as you could know. So it made me a better designer. It taught me a lot about construction. My materials work at the lab came into play. I could solve a lot of problems. And that's one thing I want to offer to folks. Don't be afraid to go to work for a state agency or any kind of a government agency. In this day and age, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to wear many hats. You're going to get moved up quickly. You might not like the pay. You might think the pay is not very good compared to some of the consulting type jobs, but your benefits are going to be good. You'll have more work-life balance. And like I said, you'll just get a chance to be a better engineer. Mm-hmm. I see kids that graduate, they go to a consulting firm and they wind up designing storm sewer systems for 10 or 15 years. And that's basically all they ever do. And that's no fun. Once you get stuck in a niche and you're billable and they know they can make money off of you, you get stuck doing the same thing over and over again.
Yep. And that's not, I don't know how many other engineers feel this way, but that's not me. I need to be doing different things. It sounds like that's you too.
Exactly. Exactly.
So how did you go from those positions within the DOT to helping with startup civil engineering startups? That's got to be an interesting story.
Yeah, in 1991, I got promoted, or I won a job as director of the Materials and Test Division. I was the first female engineer division director at TxDOT at the age of 34, which was pretty miraculous. It was lots of politics at the time. The governor was there. They wanted to see more women and minorities in positions in the management positions. So. Mm-hmm. That worked out really well for me, and I did that for 7 years. The economy was picking up. Consulting firms were trying to find TxDOT people to come work for them, and I was getting offers right and left. So I decided to take one. 7 years was the longest I'd ever stayed at a job. It was time to move on and do something different. So I went to work for a small engineering firm in the Austin area. They were out of Dallas-Fort Worth. But they had 20 people here in Austin, and so I took that job and ran that office for them, and went on from there. It seemed like I would be somewhere for 2 or 3 years, and someone else would make me a better offer and a better, interesting job.
Right.
And I wound up going from there to working for an Australian firm.
Oh, wow.
They had an engineering software program for planning. And I sold that here and did a lot of work with it and training people with it and then selling it all over the United States. So that was interesting.
So were these positions that you were being offered coming your way because you understood the DOT and how it functioned and what they were looking for? And so the companies were seeing you as a resource that really knew the DOT.
Exactly, and that I had the relationships that I could walk into an office and visit with somebody that had a project coming.
Okay. And so the first one, it sounds like clearly was that. Were the subsequent ones still, be the higher for that purpose, or were you
Yeah,
gaining skills along the way that made you even more valuable?
yeah, I think in that first job I proved, when I went to the first consulting firm, I proved that I could sell, that I could make incoming work profitable, that I knew how to manage the numbers and make the work profitable and keep my people busy. So
Mhm.
that was something new. That was a new skill I learned there. But yeah, I think mostly everything was with the thought that they could get TxDOT work because they would hire me, and I would start up their
Right,
local office.
right,
Um,
right. Did it prove out to be that way? I mean, were you successful in bringing TxDOT work then
yeah,
to the firms? Okay, so
yes, it worked out really well.
okay, and I'm sure then that's what kept those offers coming
Yeah,
is somebody saw you as you, yep, it's working. So
exactly.
yeah. So what made you choose to then go back?
Um, I was at a point in my career where I had just had enough of traveling, enough of when you're trying to win work, sometimes you work through the weekend or, 5 days at 15 hours a day to get ready for that interview so you
Yeah,
can win.
yeah,
And I was just kind of getting burnt out, and I got a phone call from TxDOT saying I'd be perfect for this job. Would I please apply for it? And then when I looked at, I had left my retirement money at TxDOT. So when I looked at, boy, I could work for 5 years and double my take home retirement pay. What a great idea.
yeah, yeah.
I decided to go ahead and do it.
So was that because you'd have, so many years in at TxDOT that put you in another category for retirement? Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, yep. So it makes sense. And so
Yeah.
you then, so did you then retire the day after, whatever the date was? Was that you?
Pretty close. Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty close. I did. Um, my position was to manage the group that did design, build, and public-private partnership projects. So it was I had done some of that work in the private sector um, with design, build, and having a quality management background, and so I got to oversee and be involved with all of the big mega project. The $1.2 billion Grand Parkway
Wow.
project in Houston was just one example of the many huge jobs where we put together the contract. We hired the contracting team, the design build team, or the public-private partnership.
Right.
We managed and watched out for the project from the local office.
Wow. Wow. Impressive. It's neat to talk with people that have been involved in really large scale things because
Yeah,
it's, the time involved for all of the pieces. Sometimes you just can't grasp, that it takes so long to bring these things from a concept to cutting that ribbon a lot longer than people real, because really the general public sees construction starting. For
yeah,
them, that's the start of the project. But for you, it started years prior to
yeah.
that. So yeah, very different.
Yeah, and I think I really like to point this out. I only graduated with a 2.49,
Yeah.
struggled with a lot of classes that were very technical, and I just couldn't quite get them. But in the end, I think I wound up with instead of a technical success, a management, marketing, relationship success.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
if I'd have never gotten though that civil engineering degree to give me that credence
yeah, yeah,
and that background of knowledge, I don't think I would have ever risen that far.
yeah, yeah. So it sounds like you've had 12 jobs, if you consider each one of the individual DOT ones as a job. Would that sound about right?
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
I worked for 4 companies in 13 years when I was in the private sector. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, it's 10, it's north of 10, but yeah.
definitely. And
Yeah.
I'm glad for that. I mean, that was good.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. How do you feel about, looking back on the things that you've done? Are you happy with the moves that you made? And I mean, it's not often that people will go back to where they left because you left for some reason, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy with my career. Proud of some things I accomplished. Rebecca Davio is a colleague of yours.
Yep.
I think the most important thing in my career that I did was work with Rebecca to bring forward recyclable materials in the highway construction industry.
Yeah.
And I went to Europe with that as a background and spent 2 weeks there meeting with heads of different governments, 5 different countries. I went all over the United States. I worked with the FHWA to get funding to bring environmentalists and civil engineers and material engineers together all over the United States to talk about this and to make it work. So that was probably the most rewarding thing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's pretty big. I
Yeah,
mean, when, you say rewarding, like, well, yeah, that was rewarding. Me, that was rewarding.
and
That.
and the key there wasn't that I was the smart person that had the technical background. I relied a lot on expertise from other people and just knowing how to get those people together to let them figure it out, and then use my positions and my relationships to make it happen.
So I think you probably will agree with this. Individuals, and I'm going to just point out young ladies tend to say, I'm afraid to go into things like engineering because all of the math, and I don't know if I'll be able to compete and those sorts of things. And what you're saying about your career was, it wasn't about that. You might have gone to work for technical related companies, DOT and the consulting firms, but it wasn't about that for you. For
Yeah,
you, it was the relationships and the management and those sorts of things.
definitely. Definitely. When I first sat down with a computer and had to do the math the old fashioned way and lay out lines and tangents and circles, boy, I was slow compared to the guys, and boy, I had to rerun programs a lot. But nobody fired me. They just continued to help me and help me grow and keep going. And so that's something I hope that the kids will take away, is that you might not be the best at something, but you're going to be good at something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is a good point because through my career as a professor, you're interacting with these individuals that are getting ready to go out, and take a professional position somewhere, and even ones that are thinking about starting in civil engineering as a profession. Um, there's a lot of them that have uncertainties, that they're like, do I really have what it takes to
Right.
to do this? And I think you're an excellent example of someone, and you're owning it. You're 249. You're owning it. You're not hiding that you didn't say I didn't have the best GPA. You're owning it, and you had a great career.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and so don't be afraid to give it a try. Don't feel like you need to give up, because you can make it through, and you can find a job, you can find a career
right,
where you'll shine, you know,
right.
and it doesn't have to be the calculations side of things. Now,
That's
did
right.
you have any management classes, or did you have any kind of academic education, or is this all internal, that's just who you are?
They gave us one class at UT, management in engineering or something like that. And that's where I heard that quote that, in 5 years, you're going to be out of engineering and into management. So, no, I just kind of learned it as I went. On my own, I would read leadership books. And TxDOT did some good things with me as well. They sent me to what was called the Governor's Executive Development Program. I don't think they do that anymore, but it was for executives in all state agencies. It was a 6-month deal where you came and went and had assignments. I also went to the AASHTO Leadership Program. That's the American Association of State Highway.
It's a long one.
Yes, and they had a leadership program I went to that was
Excellent.
2 weeks, and that was really helpful too.
Excellent. So how do you look, when you look back at your career, how do you feel about your management and development skills? Did they dramatically improve? Was it, did you feel like they were pretty strong? They just needed to come out?
Yeah, I think that they were there. They just needed to come out, and I needed to make some mistakes. Managing people is probably one of the most difficult things that you do as a manager. You know, you can do the business strategies, you can do the sales, but being that one-on-one with your employees, who are your most valuable asset,
Right.
I messed a couple of those up.
Okay.
Lessons there, and tried not to repeat them.
Right. So let's talk about a little bit of what you're doing now, because I think I don't know if you know much about me, but I'll relate some stories to you, but tell us about what you've got going now.
Yeah. I chose this job again because I wasn't going to have to travel. I could set my own hours and kind of start something from scratch that somebody needed that was going to be helpful and important.
Right.
It's the vision of my company's owner that we create this school and we recruit high school kids that don't want to go to college, can't go to college, returning veterans, people from those HUD 3 section neighborhoods, even folks that are rehabilitating.
Right. Yeah.
They've got out of some sort of prison and need a job now. There's so many connections out there that you can use and bring these kids and folks into this school and get them a really good paying job with a future.
Right.
And without them having to go to college.
Right. So this would be technicians that are doing material testing, kind of like the stuff that you were mentioning when you had your second position.
That's right.
Field work.
Yeah, inspection, testing, and then we'll go into actual being a concrete laborer, a dirt supervisor on a project, and maybe some contract management, understanding contracts a little bit from a technician side, and why that contract, you got to read that contract and follow the text. Yeah.
Right. So where did this idea come from the owner? How did this come to be?
I think the need, even during this recession, we're allowed to continue. We're getting paid to do design work from home. We're getting paid to be out in the field inspecting projects. That's what our civil engineering firm does. We manage maintenance programs for roadways. We do environmental as well. So they're still essential jobs, and these projects are still being built. And this is so great. They're being built without traffic right now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing in our way. We can build really fast. So we couldn't find people to hire. And we hire them. Even the college kids are coming without that much of a great education to be a value to us when we first get started.
Mm-hmm.
So this was to fill our void, number one. And then number two, all of our consulting friends and our contractors are having the same problem. So it was a win-win. We're going to help these kids out, and we're going to fill this niche and get more people in the labor force that we truly need.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's a great job. That's the thing that's so exciting. People don't really think about going into the construction industry, but it's a great job. I hired a guy 5 years ago. I don't know what they're hiring him for now, but he's 20-year career. He's a bridge inspector. I hired him for $120 grand a year, retirement fund, insurance, You know, so you can really do well. You can work your, you can start a base salary of around 35 or 40,000. So
So do the individuals pay for the training, or how does that work?
Yeah, we're finding funding sources. It's pretty easy to find. Veterans Administration, the Texas Workforce Commission, different entities, economic development corporations will give you tuition for these kids.
So they're able to come at no cost or low cost to this. So what's the length of time that they stay with you before they can go out and compete for a job?
Yeah, right now we're looking at a 6-month class that's online. We set them up for 6 months, but if they don't have anything else to do, I think they could finish it a lot sooner.
Okay.
But
So
if they're working and doing this part-time, then they can do it in 6 months.
And so it's self-directed,
Yes.
basically, on their side. And it's up and operational, or are you still building the content?
I'm still building it.
Okay. When do you think it will be released?
I think it's going to be another year before we really get it fully up. We'll be able to start putting a class out for like existing workers at consulting firms might want to take a class to improve their skills.
Right.
So we'll have one-off type classes coming out in a month or so.
Okay.
And build from there, and then it'll be the total complete package.
And so how many classes will like one grouping be?
Yeah. For the construction inspector, I think I've got about 15 different full classes.
Okay. So that's a lot of material.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. You're not sitting around twiddling your thumbs if you're going to be working on this thing. So I'm coming up against a little, a block here on time-wise. And so I'm going to have to end ours a little bit short, but I also, I'm going to ask you to stay on the line. So we'll end our official podcast, and I appreciate that you coming on with me for the Let's Be Civil podcast. But don't go anywhere because I've got a couple things that I want to chit chat with you about.
Sure.
And hopefully we'll have some more opportunities to converse here. So,
well, let me congratulate you on what you've done at Texas State. My son actually graduated from there with your first engineering program.
Okay.
4 years ago, I guess, and it's a good school, and I appreciate that y'all are bringing engineering to it.
Yeah, well, this will be the fourth, or it is the fourth program, and we're working right now on mechanical engineering to add that and that's actually on a fast track.
Good.
To get that one up and running. So, yep, we're growing engineering at Texas State. Boy, there's a demand. There is.
There is.
No question about it. So
great career. Great.
Yep. So thanks again, and hang tight.
All right. Thank you.
I'll be right back with you.